It's finally here. It's fall, one of my favorite times to fish. Cool, crisp bottom air. Just breathe it in. Except for today. Today it's 93 degrees, we have 35-mile-an-hour winds and bluebird skies. I think most people just say, you might want to just stay home, watch a little football, and hammer down a couple beers. And really, quite frankly, I probably should have done that. But there's one lure manufacturer that says, no, move over, Rover, and let Mr. Twister take over, because these lures are gonna light a fire under those bass's bellies, especially in these tough conditions. So stick around, and we're gonna find some bass in some really tough fall conditions. Will Mr. Twister do it? Well, watch, find out. All right, let's take a little closer look at the Mr. Twister. I had to pop into the bar here because it is a hot day and I need to get some shade. But here's the packaging right here. Most people probably associate the curly tail worm or the small grub when they think Mr. Twister. And why is it called Mr. Twister? Well, look at the logo right there. Look at the tail, the curly tail, the ribbon tail, you know, whatever you want to call it. That's, you know, what gives it away. It's the twisted tail. And don't worry, folks, we're going to learn more about the history of this lure. And they didn't just make grubs and worms, soft plastics. They made spinner lures, they made topwater buzz baits, and we're going to show you more of those. We're going to go back to Angling Archaeology studio and just take a look at that. And then we'll look at some Bass Pro catalogs as well, too. But you also see that, you know, they've got a few other things that they make here. Right there, for example, you got one of the spinning lures and the jigs. But yeah, you know what? Hey, let's just learn the history. There are a few defining moments in the history of soft plastics. Some of those moments being Nick and Cosmic Cream cooking up soft plastic worms in the late 1940s, eventually turning that into Cream Lure Company. Tom Mann introducing the jelly worm in 1967, and then fast forwarding a few years to 1972, where Glenn Carver from Louisiana came up with a curly tail worm soft plastic concept, which would eventually become Mr. Twister in 1973. Now, prior to Carver's Mr. Twister curly tail concept, most soft plastics had limited action. The action was generally provided by the angler's retrieval. Now, don't get me wrong, not all soft plastics were plain and boring. There was the paddle tail, which worked just fine, but the new Mr. Twister curly/ribbon tail was the first to provide a fluttering action upon retrieval. Now, even in the beginning, Mr. Twister had multiple options, and I feel like a lot of these sound like Dairy Queen treats. For example, we've got the 4-inch Mr. Twister, which we know of today as the curly tail grub. We got the 6-inch Mr. Twister, the Maxi Mr. Twister, the Lizard, the Teeny Mr. Twister, the Meanie Mr. Twister, the Mr. Twister DT, which stood for double tail, the Ballyhoo, which was a saltwater option, and the Mr. Twister Phenom series, which came in a 4, 6, and 8-inch and provide more of a natural worm-like appearance. And in addition to soft plastic offerings, they also had spinner lures. They had the Mr. Twister single and double spin, and the Teeny and Meanie Mr. Twister spinner lures. And all the soft plastics came in a variety of different color options. In 1982, Sheldon's, the maker of MEPS, bought Mr. Twister. Now, throughout the years, there were a variety of Mr. Twister options, and we'll go over those in just a bit at Angling Archaeology Studios. And you can still find these Mr. Twisters today at all major retailers, but you know what I'm going to say. Give life to these old grubs. Pick up a vintage pack on eBay or an estate sale, garage sale. They're easy to find and fun to fish. All right, so now that we know a little bit of the history of the lure, before we put this on the water, let's take a little deeper dive at the offerings that Mr. Twister had throughout the years. And we're gonna do that by one of my favorite things, obviously looking through these old school Bass Pro catalogs. And I've got this Mr. Twister catalog from 1985. And we're gonna take a look at just kind of what was out there throughout the years. Now, we're not gonna look at every single one of them because that would take forever. This would be like a 5-hour video, but we're just gonna look at some of the highlights, like some of the lunker buzz or some rare stuff that I haven't even tried, but I think we're gonna have to make a video about it. And that right here is this new Twinsation. This is a cool lure. So without further ado, let's dive into these catalogs. All right, so as I mentioned before, Mr. Twister came out right around 1972, 73, and so I figured I'm going to show you my earliest Bass Pro catalog from 1975 that's got a great spread on Mr. Twister, and you can see this catalog has had some mileage. It is separating, but just has some really good representation of Mr. Twister, and you can see how popular it was back in 1975. So you see right here, new for 75, the double tail, and you can rig that up whatever way you wanted to. If you want to just put a jig head on this, but they show it with a spinner bait, that's pretty cool. You also got the Mr. Twister Lizard Snack Pack right there, and none other than old Johnny Morris right here holding up some bass, you know, proudly on display after catching those on some Mr. Twisters. So we're going to move over, and you start to see some other new items for 75, and that being the phenom worms, which I think they actually came out a little bit earlier, but maybe just new to Bass Pro for 75, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But essentially, you see a little bit of a difference here from these phenom worms to the actual Mr. Twister worms, and the most noticeable difference, and I'm going to pull one off over here so you can see it, is just this. The phenom is more of just a curly tail offering. And you can see that right there. And this one has that ribbon tail that I think we're kind of used to when we think of Mr. Twister. Maybe we think of this ribbon tail. Maybe you think of the phenom. I don't know. But also the phenom's, you know, kind of quote unquote lifelike type appearance too on the actual body of the soft plastic itself. So you got some new phenom colors down here. You can kind of see that they do things a little bit differently too. Is like they have, you know, just straight up colors, like you have your reds, blues, purples, but they also have different colored tails. So blue with a white tail, or, you know, black with a fire tail, whatever the case may be. And then over here we have the ribbon tailed worms for 75, and you got a 3, 4, 6 inch, and you also have the 9-inch maxi Mr. Twister right there. So that's what we have for 1975. All right, and moving on to 1976. Now I'm going to preface that by saying we're not going to go through every single year, but I really feel like the 70s and 80s were the most innovative period for Mr. Twister, and you get to see a really nice variation of different lures that are coming out during that time. But for this 1976, we have the Outhouse catalog, and what that is that's basically the BASS version of the Bass Pro Shop, so it's just another catalog option that they had back in the day. Very cool if you can get one. It's a lot of fun to look through these. But let's take a look at this first one right here, and that is the Sassy Spin. And basically what that is a little spinner bait with a soft plastic with tentacles on it. And you can kind of see that right there. Trying to prevent the glare. And by the way, there's been some folks that have written in to tell me how to help with the glare. I'm trying to do the best I can. Just kind of lighting in the room's a little off. But anywho, so we have the phenom worms again. We've also got the Sassy Skirts by themselves, the Super Liz, which is just lizard, and the Scamp. And we've got the Meanie Spins, the Meanie Snack Packs, the DT Snack Packs, which is double tail, and then this was what I really want to focus on right here, and that is the Twinsation. I've only run across this once in the wild, and I have a few packs of them. I've been way too scared to actually fish these, but I think I'm gonna have to make a video because I have one that's kind of busted open, so I figured why not. But what this is essentially is just a double-bladed spinner. And this pack comes with 2 different spin options. So you can see, because this one's open, so we'll just go ahead and take a look at this. But it comes already tied up with these 2 blades right here. You have one that's orange and one that's black with some glitter on it. And then you have another one that comes with a willow blade as well. So if you want to change up your presentation, let's say that spinner's not working, you want to put a different spinner on, it's a much faster, quicker way to kind of change out your spinner without having to untie. And then it also comes with a little Mr. Twister sensation down there. And it came in a variety of different colors. And so you got one right here that's chartreuse, and you can see like these blades are obviously darker with some orange kind of fleck in there, and then you have an orange blade, and this one has a chartreuse orange blade, and then also has these other ones too that are kind of, you know, hammer smithed in or whatever you want to call that. But Anywho, very neat, hard to find. I haven't seen them on eBay, but I haven't really ever looked for them either. But just a fun lure. Can't wait to try that. But you see, those were out in 1976. Now, before we jump into 1977, I wanted to show you this lure real quick. And what this is, it's the floozy spinnerbait coupled with the nasty skirt. And it was made by Doc Moorhead. And I believe that the sassy spin that we have right here is in response to this lure. Now, we're not going to get in the weeds with this today, but I just wanted to show you what this is. But if you are a Doc Moorhead or a Mr. Twister historian, you may be able to tell me the difference or correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Doc Moorhead came up with this first because it had a new kind of skirt action for a spinnerbait, and then became kind of popular, and then Mr. Twister kind of caught onto that as well too. I think that's how that all went down, but correct me please if I'm wrong. So let's go on to 1977 and see what's new with Mr. Twister. Jumping into the 1977 catalog, this is where we really start to see some stuff expand as far as new offerings from Mr. Twister. And if you see right here, you've got almost a catalog within a catalog. And so front and center right here, we have the Mr. Twister 3-inch Sassy Dad, which is basically a crawdad. But what's really cool about this is they have this crawdad head right here. It's a jig head that has two little kind of eyes right there to kind of mimic the face of a crawdad. Very, very cool. That'd be a lot of fun to get your hands on one of those. That would be a fun thing to fish with, coupled with some of your old school soft plastics. We move over here, we have another new offering for 77, and that is the centipede. And you can see a centipede right here, and this is in a blue color with a white tail, and you can see kind of all the little tentacle arms with the heart-shaped tail right there. But really nice little soft plastic. Then we have some other new sizes and new offerings from Mr. Twister over here. You got the Powerhead crawfish, which is it's got natural bucktail on there, and some of the Phenom and Super Lizards. But we got some of the same old folks here from the years before. So we have the Sassy Skirt back we had that in the 1976 catalog. And then we've also got some of the Sensations, which were basically just the soft plastics that came with the new Twinsation spinnerbait right there. And then essentially this is the same is what we have in the 1975 catalog as far as sizes, colors, things like that. All right, so moving into the tail end of the 1970s, the 78 and 79 had the exact same layout, except for one difference in 1979. We'll show you that here in just a second, but let's go ahead and just take a look at the 78 offerings. So as we can see right here, we've got the centipede is the star of the show again, but now we have new hot colors, so you can see a lot more vibrant type colors for the centipede for 1978. Then we've got the Phenom here, we got the living worm, the Sensation again, the Super Liz, we got the Sassy Dad, which I gotta find some of these. I think this would be a lot of fun to fish, especially in the fall. That would be a really cool, or even springtime would be a great time early spring would be a fun time to throw those. You got the Groovy Grub right here. The Groovy Grub kind of reminds me a little bit of the Man's Stingray. And I mean, it's very similar in that sense, but just a small downsized grub. Then you've got the originals right here. You got the Mr. Twister originals. You got the, the Mr. Twister packs, the teeny Mr. Twisters, the meaty Mr. Twisters, the maxi Mr. Twisters, and then you got the double tails, which these are some of all the original offerings that they had. So let me show you what's a little bit different about 1979 here. And let's see if we can get that open to the correct page. Almost. There we go. We got the Slither. And the Slither comes with what they call a ripple fin. And I believe I have one of those right here. I do. So you can see this is what it looks like. And you can see this fin right here, really thin fin on top of the soft plastic that's supposed to kind of give it a little bit of a ripple motion as you're moving it through the water. So that is the Mr. Twister Slither for 1979. All right, folks, we've got two more things here, and then we'll get on the water and go try to find some bass. But Real quickly, we have the 1985 Fishing Tips and Tackle by Mr. Twister. So it's kind of a tackle tips and catalog all in one. And we'll go through this really quickly. If you want to just, pause the video and take a little deeper dive into the pictures, you can of the catalog. But what we have here is we have tips for successful fishing, different species. Got a little bit of a kind of, awards or Angler of the Year type page right there. And then we get into some of the soft plastics. And we start over here on this side, and we've got basically, they go by colors of the different types. And so for this is kind of more of a, I would assume more of a panfish, I'm guessing. But you got the solid colors, the multicolors, the natural colors for some of these smaller jigs right here. Probably more of a crappie presentation up top. And then these, this could be anything. This could be bass, but these all right here would be smaller panfish style. But you got the bloodline color, which I think that's a really neat option that they had in the 80s. Essentially, it's a see-through clear plastic with the inside being the color to make it look like you can see the bloodline. So let's see if we can kind of pop that up there so you can see that a little better. Really neat offering by them. They also have the live look. They had these little frog options right here. They had, just a lot of different soft plastics. So, the hog frog and, the Tweedle bug, which the Tweedle bug could be easily confused as a beetle spin. But Sassy Shiner, the Little Bit, Teeny and Meany. I mean, these are all just smaller downsized type lures right here. But, for the sake of time, we'll go through this pretty quickly. But stop the page if you want to see anything. You got the lizards, you got the hog frogs, you got the pocket dad. And I'll show you the pockets here in just a second. Those are pretty cool lures. Now, this next lure is really a pretty interesting one. Now, if you remember in the history lesson they went over, the company that owned Mepps bought Mr. Twister in 1982. And so the Mepster is kind of a little mutant combination of both of those lures combined, where it says too much. Well, what they're saying is they basically threw everything against the wall to produce this lure. So you've got a little Mepps inline spinner with the tail end of a Mr. Twister and a skirt added to get the Mepster. Really pretty neat lure. Just a lot going on, but you got to figure, hey, it's got to get a bass pretty excited, right? So just a fun lure they have right there. So we've also got some other types, more ways to catch more fish. So you've got the Mr. Minnow, you've got the curly tail crappie, and we're going to just go pretty quick through a lot of these just for the sake of time. So here are the worm colors. Again, we have the bloodline, you have the solid colors, the natural colors, the red fleck or flake, you have the multicolor, and then here's something that's pretty neat. It's the pocket potion, and what that is, it's basically just scent additive, and I think it's more to mask the scent of the human hands. If there's gasoline spilled from your boat motor, or if you ate a ham sandwich or something like that, and you didn't want that to go on your soft plastic, you would spray this. And they had a couple different colors. They had a nightcrawler, a licorice, which I thought was kind of unique, and a crawfish scent right there. So they also have the pocket phenom. We're going to look at that here in just a little bit. And it's not pocket like you'd think. It's not going into your pocket. It's something a little bit different. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. But you've also got some of the other phenom series. You've got the night crawlers. But pretty neat. You got some spinner baits. You got some buzz baits. You got some jigs. A little bit of everything. All right here in the 1985 catalog. So there you have it, folks. Oh, and this is pretty neat too. Real quickly, looks like they also got in the pork game as well. So you see they got a Mr. Twister, almost like an Uncle Josh. So there you have it. And then you got some clothes, but there it is. The 1985 Fishing Tips and Tackle by Mr. Twister. All right, last but not least, we've got this 1995 catalog. And in my opinion, I think the 70s and 80s were really the heyday for Mr. Twister, because by the time you get into the 90s, there's just so many different soft plastic manufacturers out there. It's just kind of hard to keep track. But you see right here, we kind of got all the same stuff. We've got the phenom, you know, the curly tail grub, the lizard, or whatever else. But we've also got, you know, a new offering down there, which is the jerk rat lure. And a little spoiler, I'm going to just show you right now. This is the worm that I'm actually going to be fishing with in this video. So spoiler alert, the split double tail. One thing that Mr. Twister does a really good job of is they stay relevant to the time. Now, I'm not sure exactly what year these came out, probably late 80s, maybe early 90s, but if you just pull that card back and took a look at it, what would that look like to you? Well, you'd think immediately that looks like a sluggo. Well, it's not. It's the slimy slug. It's basically just a scented fish attracted worm right here, a lot like the sluggo, but certainly a very popular soft plastic for the time. Now, we talked about this earlier. We got the pocket phenom worm. Now, what is that? Now you think to yourself, oh, you just throw that in your pocket and then, you know, you're ready to go fishing. Well, no, that's not exactly what that means. If you can see right here, I don't know if you can tell through the soft plastic right there, but there's some little indentations within the soft plastic right here, and you can see the picture right there. It releases air bubbles. So what this says on the back right there is that the body traps air and retains the scent. So this little worm, you can see it from the cartoon picture right here, or the illustration, is that there's some indentations right there on the soft plastic, which helps, quote unquote, retain the air. So really neat little offering right there. They also did some collaborations. I have a whole video. I'll put the video, you know, I won't put the video there, but there's the video right there. I'll put the link down below. And this is the Ricky Green's Do Something lure. And so they did a collaboration with Ricky Green on basically making a finesse style worm right there. And we've got just an old school packaging right there of Mr. Twisters. I've got a whole bunch of these packs, but I just wanted to pick out a few just to show you a little variation of kind of the new packaging, you know, compared to the old packaging right there. We've got just some basic phenom, you know, worms right there. No big thrills. We got a chartreuse tail. We got a full color right there. And then we've got, you know, something that's a little bit different than soft plastic, and we've got the Lunker Buzz. Okay, it's basically just a buzz bait. They got the Pro Series and then just the normal one. And what's the difference? Well, you read the back, nothing for the most part. I think they had a little bit of a different kind of shimmer or shine on that actual buzz, but I got to tell you, if it was a difference between $1 or something like that, you might as well just go with these. These are just great spinner baits. So there you go. You get a little closer look, a little deeper dive into the Mr. Twisters, and you know, I think we've done enough talking. I think it's time to do a little fishing. And real quick, someone's going to correct me. I know this is a buzz bait. I think I just called it a spinner bait. It's a buzz bait. Oops. Speaking of buzzes and props, we've got the Mr. Twister top prop right here. I forgot to mention this one, and I've actually got a video about this as well too. But why is it called the top prop? Well, it's a top water lure, which basically makes a prop motion, but I mean, really, really, really awesome action. I've fished this, I've caught fish with this, just a really fun, cool lure. Look for these, you can still find them on eBay. Just a fun one. So, okay, now it's time to fish. Well, now that we know the history, we got a little deeper dive into Mr. Twister. Will this catch bass on hot, windy, tough conditions? Well, stick around, we're gonna find out. Alrighty. Slightly breezy today, but man, you cannot beat that view. Isn't that awesome? Just fantastic. But here's what we're working with. We got a little Mr. Twisters right here, not the traditional old school curly tail that we're all used to. It's actually a split double tail. You see right here. Well, the wind kind of blew it over, but we got a chartreuse and kind of this off-white cream color right here. But hey, you know what? I think even with this wind, we're gonna find some fish. So let's get down there and do this. So as you can see, as we get down from the road right there, we got a lot of coverage from the wind, so I think we're gonna be all right. But man, that water is low, it's clear. So I don't know, is it gonna be good or bad? You know, we got a heat wave in October, and conditions aren't exactly what they typically are, or, you know, they're not the best conditions is what I'm saying. You know, we got bluebird skies, which doesn't always help. And I think the breeze does help, but I think the heat has kind of just got them in a funk. So, well, let's find out if that's actually the case. All right, let's kick things off this chartreuse. Let's see what this does for us. Oh yeah, man, these are, gosh, over 30 years old, probably close to 40 years old. And still as good as new. That's a neat looking grub. Check out this grub. We're getting close to Halloween here. That looks like something for Halloween right there. That's just that's a freaky looking little grub, but all right. Got that tied on just like you would any kind of Ned rig. Finesse fishing. Okay, first cast. Let's see what happens. Usually I go a little closer to the bank, but it's so clear they can probably see me. Go out just a little bit. Are you kidding me? Just like that. Just like that. Oh my gosh. Literally already had one on. Look at that. Look, almost took it clean off. Look at that. See that? Just pulling on it. There we go. Finally. There it is. Man, this is really the definition of finesse fishing right here. I mean, it's do nothing and get the result. You throw it out there. Oh. And there you have it. I mean, especially when the conditions are tough like this. I mean, that's not obviously anything to write home about, but it's a bass. Glad to have it. But if it's hot and it's tough to catch stuff, I mean, no better than Mr. Twister, a little grub, finesse fishing. It gets the job done every time. And I'm gonna keep going, and let's just see if we can keep getting a few more on this one, and then we'll try that that kind of off-white color, see what happens. Okay, moving on to the next one. We had some other strikes in the chartreuse, but you know, the wind's really picking up, so for the sake of time, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. We got this off-white color, and let's see what this one does. I'm sure it'll catch a fish. I mean, why wouldn't it? Oops. Drop the package, or the card there. All right, same thing. Just gonna put this on finesse style. Finesse style? Anyways, we're just gonna put it on like this, just like you would any other grub. Got the keeper keeping it in, the exposed hook, the weighted jig head. Let's see what this white does. Just let that fall and see what happens. Oh man, right away. First. And there we go. Literally, first cast with the white. Very nice. Be nice to catch something over a pound, but oh well. Well, listen, folks, I'll be the first to admit that those fish weren't exactly setting any state records. As a matter of fact, they're pretty stunted and likely need to be harvested out. But what it does go to show is when the going gets tough, Mr. Twister gets going. Even in the hardest conditions, you throw a little Mr. Twister on that, do a little finesse fishing, and you're gonna catch bass. And why I say Mr. Twister, not just all soft plastics, because I really do think that that little movement in the tail gives you an advantage when the going gets tough. So anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of Angling Archaeology, where we unearth the good old days. I want to thank you all for watching, liking, subscribing. If you haven't done so already, please do like and subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. And hey, if you're looking for some vintage lures, some old Mr. Twisters, crankbaits, topwaters, you name it, check out Angling Archaeology on eBay. We've got a variety of different stuff on there. And until next time, folks, well, we'll see you on the water. Thanks for watching Angling Archaeology, where we unearth the good old days. Don't forget to like and subscribe.